Okay, I think we shall start then. So thanks for joining us today for our webinar with me, Martin Lawan from It's Learning, and Jonathan White from the University of Derby. The topic of today's webinar is about the need for digital literate FE and skills teachers. This webinar is going to get recorded and will be available on our website and our YouTube channel, and I'll also be sending out a link afterwards to everybody who's attended. If you've got any questions, if you could submit them through the questions or through the chat section on the right-hand side of your screen within the webinar software, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can at the end. Okay, so for those of you who don't know who It's Learning are, we're a Norwegian education company, and we have a cloud-based learning platform which is used with FE colleges in the UK. So we've got 15 years experience of provided blended learning to the FE sector. We tend to focus much more on the pedagogy and not really so much on the teaching, on the technology side of things. So we've been working closely with Hotwood Hall College, and I know that I can see that some people from Hotwood have joined us today, and also Accrington and Rosendale College. We just recently signed up West Herts College. They've joined It's Learning for the next 5 years. And they've all been using, apart from West Herts, they've been using us successfully for quite a while now. So I've been in discussions with quite a few other FE colleges throughout the UK who have been looking to move from their existing Moodle systems to It's Learning. So we're very excited to have Jonathan White today on today's webinar. Jonathan's got 7 years experience in the FE sector, and he's been involved with learning technologies and ILT both on the strategy side of things and on delivery. He used to work at Rotherham College in the curriculum learning resources, and he was a curriculum learning resources specialist, and he's currently working at the University of Derby in the Department of Learning Enhancement. Derby University, or the University of Derby, also manage and look after Buxton and Leek College, so he also has the experience in his current role with the FE sector. He's the author of a book which is about to publish this week called Digital Literacy Skills for FE Teachers, and we're going to give 23 copies of this for the first 20 people to attend today's webinar, and that book is available to order now from Amazon. So enough of me, I'm going to now pass you over to Jonathan himself.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for that introduction, Martin. I shall now try and live up to it. Yes, this afternoon we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to start by talking about what the digitally literate FE and skills teacher looks like and what that means. And then we're going to go on to talk about how we can increase user engagement amongst staff of technologies, and look at the recommendations of the FELTAG report. Also going to have a talk about students' expectations of online learning, digital technology, and some of the latest research around that and what it potentially means for the FE sector. And then finally we're going to have a think about online communication and collaboration across colleges and across the sector in general. So yeah, Martin gave a bit of my background there, and I've written this book on digital literacy aimed at FE teachers specifically, and the starting point for the book was what would a digitally literate FE teacher look like, and if we get that right, we can then improve teaching and learning of digital skills as a result. So to have a think about this, I think we need to think about what we're trying to achieve now with technology. Colleges have had technology in the classroom for, well, in a broad sense, for around 15 years, and there's been quite a large investment over that time period in things like interactive whiteboards, audio-visual equipment, VLEs, other systems which support learning as well. But thinking about going forward now, we need to think what we want to achieve with this technology and where we want to go with it next. So we need to think about we're constantly told we need to think about what learners, what skills learners need to have in the digital age. What will make them prepared for jobs that don't exist yet? To think about how we can get learners to critically and creatively engage with their learning. So there's a lot of talk about student as producer, and how teachers can harness technology confidently and apply their professionalism to it. And then also how we can make sure that technology is used innovatively and things can keep moving forward, and we can understand new ways of learning and teaching as a result of our use of technology. So I would say broadly these are the things that colleges want to achieve, and it's thinking next about how we do that. So spend a bit of time in the book talking about what a digitally literate teacher looks like and what we mean by the term digital literacy. There's quite a lot of different definitions bandied about, and we also talk about digital skills, and lots of other terminology is packed into this. But when we talk about digitally literate teachers, especially within the FE sector, we want them to be creative in their use of technology. We want them to use their professionalism as teachers and to apply critical thinking to the use of technology. And I strongly believe from my experience that when this happens, learners are enthused and empowered by those teachers, and they then can begin to upskill in their knowledge of digital technologies, learn a bit more about them and how to use them in a professional manner, and even start innovating with them. Okay, so there's lots of pressures from various different points, and lots of fears of technology as well in education. You've only got to open a news website or a newspaper to find lots of stories being bandied around. So within the sector itself, we have the FELTAG recommendations, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a few minutes. And that's a pressure, or seemingly a pressure from above, with the talk of a 10% minimum delivery of learning to be online. There's also the prevent duty, which has just come into force, and there's various different things around that. But from the technology side, people are worried around whether technology only complicates things. Does it increase the dangers in college, and what's the role of the teacher in managing how learners use technology and their exposure to potentially extremist material through it? And then more widely in the media, there's lots of suspicions of classroom technology, which is not always helped by how it's reported. For example, there was an OECD report which came out last week, and that's been widely reported, that the main finding was technology in the classroom makes no difference to results and learning outcomes. Which is not exactly what that report was getting at. I'd encourage anybody to go and find that OECD report. If you type in OECD classroom technology into a search engine, you will be able to find that report within the first few results. And then there's lots of report about smartphone and tablet addiction and distractions by learners using those technologies, both inside and outside of the classroom, and young people in their use of them as well. And again, there's scientific evidence around that, but there's also a lot of suspicion and fear that's probably quite unjustified, really. And then, of course, there's costs. So there's the fear that a lot of money has been spent on technology. How do we replenish it when it comes to the end of its life? How do we make sure that it's sustainable? But there are a lot of resources now, a lot of media which is free online and legally available to use, and changes in copyright law are helping teachers with this. So in reality, by teaching digital skills and by having technology in the classroom, we need to start re-understanding how we use it and make sure that our teachers are equipped to teach about digital safety, productivity with technology, and the real skills that people need for living and working in a digital society. And that only comes through excellent teaching of the use of technology. It doesn't come by merely the existence of technology. Okay, so there's many different ways that we can engage with teaching staff to increase both their knowledge, their skills, and to share good practice. I'd encourage anybody to also go and look at the JISC organisational review tool. Again, if you type in, this has moved around because JISC have reorganised their service and some of their websites, but again, if you search for JISC Digital Literacy Organisational Review, and you will find that they have it linked from a website, and it's a Word document that allows managers within colleges to think about what sort of delivery is happening within their college, what delivery needs to happen, and who's involved. And it's a good way of working out what skills can be developed within existing teams. But as with anything else, it's about empowering teachers to explore and to learn about new things, and that can only be done when we have a good infrastructure and a working environment which is conducive to people experimenting. So encouraging teachers to take risks with technology can only be a good thing. Okay. We also need, conversely with that, to create policies which protect and educate. So I spend a lot of time in the book talking about the fear perspective. Digital safety in particular gets taught in a very dictatorial way, so you get a lot of teaching from a fear perspective of don't do this, don't do that, this is harmful, avoid that. And as we know as educators, that approach rarely works with anything, so that there's no reason why that would work with technology. So we need to get rid of a fear culture in general around technology and make teachers able to teach skills that they need for the students in front of them. Have the infrastructure in place, and from that, good practice can only grow. Okay, so FELTAG, which I mentioned earlier, FELTAG, for anybody who doesn't know, stands for Further Education Learning Technology Action Group, and it was set up a few years ago with the aim of looking at learning technologies across the FE and skills sector, and they submitted their report, their main report, to government in 2014, and since then the various agencies within the government around FE have been coming up with responses and trying to turn this into actionable policies. The most headlines have been attached to the one from the Skills Funding Agency, which has looked at the idea that colleges deliver 10% of learning online. Now there's quite a bit of debate as to what that means. If we could just go to the next slide, please, Martin. I've actually taken this very long quote, I won't read it out, from the Skills Funding Agency website, but they've attempted to clarify this because they realised that there was a lot of discussion going on as to what this 10% actually meant. And so they've tried to define it a little bit there. I'll just leave that on screen a few seconds. But many different colleges are looking at this in different ways. So some colleges are looking at ways that some courses, complete courses, could go online in sort of a MOOC fashion. MOOCs are massive open online courses. and we get talk of VOOCs, which is vocational open online courses. So a lot of colleges are looking at how they can develop some courses into being completely delivered online, whilst others are looking at units and modules within an existing course and turning some of those modules into self-directed e-learning modules. We should also remember that there's been a lot going on within the sector around e-learning and blended learning over the last 10 years. So this really is not a new area for FE. FE colleges and teachers in different parts of the sector have been involved in e-learning and blended learning for the best part of 10 years, if not slightly longer. And a lot of colleges already have some of the key infrastructure in place, so VLEs, for example, e-resources and other e-learning systems. So this really, I don't think that this is about reinventing the wheel. I think this is just a way of giving colleges, giving the FE sector a boost so that they can start thinking, okay, how much actually are we delivering online and what do we mean by e-learning? Is it consistent across the college, or does it need to be different per program? So there's a lot of conversation still going on that, and I expect that to continue for at least another year to 2 years while people have these discussions and come to terms with what this might mean for them. But it would not surprise me if in 2 years' time most colleges are delivering, actually when they do an audit, they realise they're delivering more than 10% online, depending on your definition. Okay. So now thinking about meeting students' expectations. Again, I've written quite a lot in the book. There's a couple of chapters that deal explicitly with responding to students' needs, planning for students' needs. But interestingly and slightly irritatingly for me, the most up-to-date research on this has actually been published in May, which was just after I completed my book and sent it in for publication. So there is no mention of this report in my book, but I think this is a very, very interesting report and will lead on to many things for the FE sector. So JISC, again, put together this, they've been looking at this digital student project for a few years now, and they've brought out this report in May, which is Digital Student Further Education and Skills Project. I think we can send the links for all of these resources, can't we, Martin? Afterwards,
yes,
we can send those out by email. Yeah, but the key findings were when they looked at what students' expectations for learning and teaching through technology in FE. The key finding was that there was really a lack of research in the academic literature in this area. So not much has been published around this particular area. They did find that quite a lot have been published around teachers' expectations, which is still interesting and useful, but from the student side, not so much. So they've done their own research, and they've found across the FE sector that there are a lot of generalizations still made about students and technology. And this doesn't surprise me at all, as this is my own experience, and again, I talk about this in the book. We are a diverse sector. We serve a diverse range of students' needs. Students come to us from a wide range of backgrounds with lots of different types of experience. But generalizations are often made about groups within the FE sector. So there's continually, you hear that young learners are good with technology. They intuitively know how to use different technologies and can apply that. Okay, so this is a big generalization which is really emanated from Mark Prensky's article back in 2001, where he defined the term digital natives. So you've probably heard the term digital natives, which he uses to describe the generation born after, I think it's after 1980, which he describes as a generation raised immersed in technologies, and basically goes on to equate this with an understanding of how to use them and a knowledge and sort of inner knowledge of how to make technologies work for them. Reality and experience and the research of JISC tells us that actually the opposite is true. We know, because of the diverse clients that we serve, that not all people born within those years are brought up immersed in technology. There's lots of socio-economic reasons why some people might be and some people might not be. But we very often find, and JISC's research found, that students who are good at using one particular type of technology, so for example they might be excellent at taking photographs with their mobile phone and posting those to social media, that does not mean that they can apply those skills that they've learnt there to other learning technologies. And it certainly doesn't mean that they're applying critical thought to the process. So they probably aren't aware of the safety and security issues around that, legal issues, ethical issues around the use of social media. So to me that is always a big generalization that we need to break down. And JISC's report, they actually found when they interviewed learners in a range of age groups across the FE sector, they found that these learners actually looked to FE lecturers to provide that support and to not make assumptions about them. So they wanted to see learning technologies in the classroom being used, and they wanted to be taught about them, but they don't want people to expect that they are the experts. They want the lecturers to be the experts. And this is great for us as a sector, and to me it's a massive wake-up call that we can't simply have technologies to keep saying that we're responding to what students expect us to have. We need to think about it in a completely different way and say we should have them because we should be the experts to teach students how to use them. Okay. So they also found that the, access to digital technologies is a big issue. So again, this comes into the backgrounds of learners, so the socio-economic backgrounds, and their ability to access devices of a certain level and broadband internet at home. And this is borne out as well by the annual reports from Ofcom. Ofcom produce an annual report which looks at the take-up of internet usage, mobile phone usage, smartphone and tablet usage every year, and they pretty much find the same results as this. So for me, this is telling me that FE teachers have a key role in educating learners how to use technologies and how to behave and how to conduct themselves and how to live and work in digital environments. And this really is where we need to go next with learning technology. It's not enough to have them, it's all about what we do with them next. Okay. So online communication and collaboration is also a growing area within the FE sector. Some of you may be aware of the Twitter hashtag UKFEchat and its associated website, which is ukfechat.com. That's been going for at least a couple of years now. Actually, it's probably more than a couple of years. And this, the original idea was to have weekly conversations through Twitter using this hashtag, and there would be a theme for the weekly discussion, and FE teachers, but broadly anybody who used that hashtag could join in this conversation. So topics affecting teachers and learners across the FE sector are discussed, And there's been some really, really fascinating discussions that go on there. Lots of engagement with such a wide variety of people across the sector, and the organisers of UKFE Chat now have their website, and it's grown to such a degree, and they feel that the quality of the conversations that have come out of this have enabled them to put on a conference. And so if you go to their website, ukfechat.com, you'll see that they have the conference advertised, which I believe is going to be their first conference. So I would really recommend that people get along to that and find out more about how FE teachers can use the web and digital technologies to communicate and collaborate. In terms of learning and online communication, again, this is a growing area, and as we respond to FELTAG and define blended and online learning, or redefine them, sorry, excuse me, our understanding of how learners communicate and collaborate in digital environments will only grow. But there's so much good practice going on in different institutions where we have students of one program working with students of another program digitally, and students of one college talking to learners on the similar program at another college and working together again digitally. So it seemingly costs nothing, but can increase students' understanding immensely, and also it's great skills for them to develop, communicating professionally but in a different sphere. So VLEs and learning platforms are the main way in which these sort of communications and collaborations take place, and Martin's going to talk a little bit more about its learning, I believe, but the VLEs are platforms which shouldn't be seen as standalone and in a vacuum. As we've got all these resources for free and legally available online, we should be much more thinking about how we can take the VLE and integrate freely available resources into it, and start to develop learning learning resources and new methods of learning and teaching which sit within a VLE, so it's a safe and secure platform, but take the free things from the web and make excellent use of them. And again, this costs relatively nothing if you've already got the VLE in place, but it can lead to such interesting new ways of learning and allowing learners and teachers to develop new ways of communicating and collaborating online. Okay, so that brings me to the end of what I've got to say. I will respond obviously to any questions, but I'll hand over to Martin as he's got a few more things to say.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's great, and some really thought-provoking ideas in there, and some great links. I'll send out the slides actually to everybody who's attended today, so those links are live. You can click on those, and I just wanted to talk through a few things that It's Learning are doing at the moment. So we've got a MOOC starting in a couple of weeks' time on blended learning. Now, we've done this a couple of times previously, and it's been a huge success, and we've had a lot of interest from the FE community. So we've decided to do an FE specific MOOC this time because we do have school customers as well. So that starts on the 5th of October. The link is down there below, and anybody can join it. It was initially set up for our existing customers. We've had a lot of interest from a lot of other colleges as well. So feel free to join it, pass it around different departments. It's a 5-week course, 1 hour per week, and at the end of it, you'll receive a certificate to say that you've completed it. We've had some great feedback so far, so go and have a look. It's free to go in, and there's no obligation. If you can't finish it, then no problem, but if you can get to the end, great, and we'll send you a certificate through. We are exhibiting at the Association of Colleges annual conference this year from the 17th to the 19th of November, and we're going to be at stand 21, so if you are going, we'd love to see you. Pop over and introduce yourselves. And as I said earlier, we like to, or we feel that we're part of the education community, not really a technology company, and we've commissioned quite a few white papers over the years on topics such as blended learning, assessment for learning, and quite a few others, and they can be downloaded from our website, and there's a link there as well. So as Jonathan said, if you have got any questions, please submit them now, and we'll ask them at the end. They're my details if anybody wants to get in contact with me. I'm arranging blended learning consultations at the moment with a number of FE colleges, and if you feel like you would want to know a little bit more about how HITS Learning does it and what our VLE is about, then please do get in touch. If you've heard anything today or you'd like to discuss anything further, please do get in touch through the different communication methods down there. Nobody's actually answered or asked any questions at the moment, so I assume everybody's happy. And Jonathan answered all your questions.
I don't mind taking questions on Twitter as well. If anybody wanted to tweet me, I'm at John, Jon, John White 82.
Great, thanks, John. So as we've got no questions, I think we'll wrap that up. Thanks for your time today. I hope you found it very useful, and we hope to see and speak to you again. Thank you.
Thank you.